What if one man could split the sea, challenge an empire, speak to a burning bush, and reshape the destiny of billions? You've heard of him, but do you really know him? Today, we dive deep into the mystery, the myth, and the mind-bending history of Moses, prophet, outlaw, liberator, lawgiver, or perhaps something even more surprising. Stick around, because by the end, you might just question everything you thought you knew about the man who changed the world. Let's start with the Nile. Not the longest river in the world, but the one that carried a 3-month-old Hebrew baby in a basket, straight into the hands of Egyptian royalty. That baby was Moses. Now here's the twist. This story isn't just a bedtime fable. Similar accounts of royal foundlings appear in ancient Mesopotamian myths, like the story of Sargon of Akkad, who also floated in a reed basket on a river. Coincidence or cultural remixing? Historians debate whether this overlap hints at shared mythological tropes, or if it points to a deeper truth, that ancient storytellers used familiar tales to encode revolutionary ideas. But if Moses wasn't born to be a prince, then what was he really born to do? Fast forward. The boy grows up, but he's different. One day he sees an Egyptian overseer beating a Hebrew slave. Moses acts violently. He kills the man. A prince turned fugitive. He flees to the wilderness of Midian. For 40 years, he disappears into the background of history. Or does he? Because this is where something unbelievable happens. A voice calls to him from a burning bush, a flame that blazes without consuming. This isn't just divine drama. It's a powerful symbol. In Hebrew, God introduces himself with the phrase, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, often translated as, I am that I am, or more accurately, I will be what I will be. That's not just a name, it's a philosophical earthquake, a God not bound by statues or shrines, but by presence, becoming, and being. And suddenly, Moses, the exile, is told to go back, to confront the most powerful man on earth. Before we move forward, only 1% of our viewers subscribe. If you're enjoying this dive into history, hit that subscribe button. It costs nothing, but helps us make more videos like this one. Let's change that 1% together. Imagine this. One dusty shepherd walks into the palace of the pharaoh and demands, "Let my people go." But here's where it gets wild. The biblical account describes 10 plagues that devastate Egypt. Water turning to blood, darkness, locusts, death. Too theatrical? Maybe, but archaeologists have uncovered eerie parallels. The Ipuwer Papyrus, a 3,200-year-old Egyptian document, describes a time when the Nile turned red, chaos erupted, and the land was in disarray. Some scholars argue it might reflect real environmental disasters. Volcanic eruptions, climate shifts, even red algae blooms. So were the plagues divine punishment, or natural events reimagined as cosmic justice? One thing is certain. Moses becomes more than a prophet. He becomes a revolutionary. But the real twist is coming. Because once Pharaoh finally relents, and the Hebrews escape, the Red Sea stands in their way. Here's one of the most iconic scenes in religious history. Moses lifts his staff, and the waters split. It sounds impossible, but scientists have proposed fascinating theories, like wind set-down effects, where strong winds push water aside in shallow regions. Could Moses have simply known the land better than the Egyptians? Possibly. But even more powerful than the miracle is the meaning. This is not just about geography. It's about liberation, about a God who sides with the oppressed. And just when you think the story ends, it really begins, because the desert awaits. At Mount Sinai, Moses disappears for 40 days. He returns not with food or treasure, but with tablets of stone, the 10 Commandments. Now pause here. These weren't just religious rules. They were a blueprint for a new society. No murder, no stealing, no false testimony. But also, one day, off every week, a radical concept in the ancient world where rest was for kings, not slaves. This was a social revolution disguised as divine decree, but it wasn't smooth sailing. While Moses is up the mountain, the people below build a golden calf. The message? Freedom is hard, and people cling to what they know, even if it's the chains they left behind. The Moses who once begged Pharaoh for release now struggles to lead his own people. The journey through the desert wasn't a straight line. It was 40 years of wandering, complaining, and constant rebellion. Moses faced mutiny, hunger, and war. His own siblings challenged his authority. Even his closest followers doubted him. But through it all, Moses evolves. Not just as a leader, but as a mediator between the divine and the flawed human heart. He establishes laws, institutions, rituals, and slowly, the former slaves become a people with purpose. But leadership has a price. Here's the final twist, and it's heartbreaking. After decades of wandering, Moses leads his people to the edge of the promised land, but never sets foot in it himself. Why? The Bible says he disobeyed God, striking a rock instead of speaking to it. But maybe the deeper message is this: Moses was the visionary, not the settler. The one who sets the future in motion, but doesn't get to live in it. Sound familiar? Think of Martin Luther King Jr., whose final speech echoed Moses' fate. "I've been to the mountaintop, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you." You might think Moses' story ends there, but actually, it's just beginning. Over 3,000 years later, his legacy still shapes the world. In Judaism, he's the greatest prophet. In Christianity, he's the forerunner to Jesus. In Islam, he's Musa, one of the most mentioned prophets in the Quran. In law, he's the archetype of justice and order. In politics, he's invoked by everyone from abolitionists to modern-day leaders. And yet, we still don't know where he's buried. According to tradition, God himself buried Moses in a secret place. Maybe that's the point. Moses wasn't just a man. He was a mirror, a movement, a myth wrapped in meaning, a voice from the fire, a footstep on sacred ground, a rebel who reshaped the world. Not with an army, but with a vision. So the next time you hear his name, ask yourself, what sea are you afraid to cross? And what laws could you write, not on stone, but in history? If you enjoyed this journey through time, subscribe now. Every week we bring you stories that rewrite the past, and maybe your future too. See you in the next one.